Hi, I'm Matt Tracy. I'm here to talk about utility revenue cases. How do utilities ask for money? This is a standard thing that uh, regulated utilities do all across the United States, frankly, through much of the world, follows a similar sort of pattern. Uh, I have particular experience with electric and gas utilities. Uh, I also have some experience with water and sewer utilities. Um, Probably most people are going to be more familiar with electric and gas in terms of uh, a certificated monopoly provider of service. Sewer and water oftentimes are provided by a local government entity rather than by a company of some sort, but not always. Anyway, this applies generally to all of them. Uh, Particular areas have different rules. Let's keep in mind that each jurisdiction and each state, certainly each country, province, whatever your local regional government is, often have different procedures that they follow. And so the details will change, but this should be pretty good overview for most people. Um, in particular, those areas that have deregulated where you can in fact get electricity from any of a number of different suppliers. This still applies, particularly to the actual owner of the wires, or in a gas case, the pipes, the physical infrastructure. This will still apply. There's just another layer added on top that changes things to try to better simulate competition. All right, that's where we are. That's what we're doing. Let's get started. Let's start off with who I am. I'm Matt Tracy. I, long time ago, got a bachelor's degree in religion and psychology majors. I then went on to get a master's degree in economics. Based on that, I got a job with the utility as an assistant load research analyst. That was it, assistant load research analyst, way long ago. Since that time, I've continued to work for a multi-state electric and gas utility for over 20 years. That came to an end a few years ago. At that time, I was a regulatory director. In the intervening years, I had responsibilities for load research, for forecasting, cost of service, particularly class cost of service, tariff administration, and rate design. I dealt with regulators, rates, tariffs, all of that stuff for pretty much my entire career. And that's why what I say to you now is not just somebody else ranting on the internet. It's somebody who's actually done this. I've testified before numerous state utility commissions, mostly in the Midwest. But that's my background, and that's why what I'm saying makes it different. I taught this course at the utility where I worked for a number of years, teaching call center people so that they had a sense of what's going on during a rate case, all the way through some of our senior executives. Most of them were at least moderately familiar with the system, but a lot of them came up through areas where working directly with a rate case was not something they did and something they didn't have specific information on. And so this course was used widely throughout my company, and I was able to share a lot with a lot of people. Hope to share some with you. This is going to take a while. We'll know once I'm done with all of this, but I hope by the time we're through, you'll have a good sense of how utilities ask for money and how that works. All right. First question, why do we regulate utilities? Let me move out of the way. Utilities are regulated for a number of reasons. Probably first and foremost is because duplication of investment is not in the public interest in a capital-intensive industry, which is to say it costs a lot of money to run a public utility. Whether you're running wires down power poles, or whether you're burying gas pipeline in the ground. Water utilities, sewer utilities are also putting pipe in the ground. All of that costs a lot of money. And frankly, you don't want to have to pay, and it's inefficient to have 4 or 5 different companies all run wires down people's backyards or front yards or wherever they're going to find room to run those wires, bury all of those pipes. You've got safety issues with all of that stuff in the air, in the ground. And so it was decided that this makes more sense. We're going to have one company within an area provide this service so that we don't have to pay for all of these duplicate series of the same thing in the area. All right? So that's the first thing, is duplication of that fundamental infrastructure investment is not in the public interest. Second, monopoly profits are frowned upon. Any basic introductory economics course is going to talk about a monopoly versus competition. A monopoly is not an evil entity that is trying to steal all your money. From an economic perspective, a monopoly is a phenomenon that occurs in certain situations, and because of the incentives there, they will in fact make more money, reap excess profits compared to a fully competitive situation. They will also sell less of their product than in a fully competitive situation. There would be more supplied to customers. And so because of those economic issues, okay, it's not that anybody's being particularly bad boys or bad girls, or it's those economic issues. Regulators try to be a substitute for competition. Keep prices down, which encourages additional use of the service. All right? That's the second one. And the third one, as I mentioned briefly earlier, is the product or service is essential to the quality of life the public has come to expect. Which is to say, can you imagine your life? I mean, you're all watching this on your computers, I presume, or wherever you're watching it. It's probably an electrically driven device. Can you imagine your life without electricity? I've actually had some experience with people who have decoupled from the grid to the point where they weren't using electricity at all. Yeah, it can be self-fulfilling in a lot of ways, but no, it's no way to live your life. You will live longer, you will live safer when you have these utility services, whether it's gas or water, certainly sewage. Anytime you get more than just a few people together, you've got to have some way to deal with that. All of these things are essential, and so there's a need to regulate these in a way beyond how every company is regulated. Within the United States, certainly every company is regulated by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and making sure that they're not out there actively trying to hurt their employees or their customers. But monopolies, certificated monopolies, and by certificated, that just means that the government entity has said, you are the only provider of this service within this specific region. It's just so critical that what they do continue to be provided, that they are closely regulated. All right, moving on. What is regulated? When we say they're regulated, one of the first things that regulators will look over are investments. And again, this has to do with the service is so critical that it's important that the regulators keep track of where is this company putting its money, what is it investing in, is it putting itself at risk, and if it's at risk, then they will put a stop to it, because it is so critical that the company survive in order to continue providing the service. Now, whether or not that a particular company survives or not, honestly, the regulators typically don't care. You know, if this company doesn't seem to be working out, they can basically force a company to sell to another company who does a better job. All right, so they they look over all of your investments. Public safety is huge. Now, on public safety, it's not going to be just the uh, publicly owned utilities, the companies that own them, but also city and municipal, government-owned utilities will also be regulated over public safety. Because again, most of these services that are provided can also kill you very quickly if you're not handling them properly. And so public safety is huge. Quality of service. That has changed over the years. What used to be acceptable in terms of a flicker outage, a squirrel gets across a fuse, which happens a lot here in the Midwest. Whatever critters happen in your area, all of that makes a difference in how people live their lives. It used to be the lights blinked and power went out for a moment, and people's VCRs, for those of you who remember VCRs, you'd have to reset the clock. You'd have to go figure out how to do that. At this point now, with everybody relying so much on electricity for data, for information, momentary outages are more of an issue. And so quality of service is regulated. And then, of course, the one that is going to be the bulk of the rest of this talk are prices. The utilities don't set their prices. Regulators tell them what prices they can do, they can offer. Utilities certainly make suggestions, and it's basically a court case, a litigated case. But ultimately, it's the regulators that tell the utilities what prices to set. I want to keep these manageable, so I'm going to shut this one down for now. I'll be coming back with another one. Please keep along with this. I hope you find this interesting. I certainly have. And I realize that doesn't mean you have to. But this will give you a good overview of how regulation works, how utilities ask for money. Thanks for sticking with me.